Lyre of the Lion by TheNightNinja2. Chapter 14. Head versus Heart. It was determined that Edmund and Mirabelle would take the challenge to Miraz. Mirabelle was a force the Telmarines feared. She had muttered something about psychological warfare, but few had heard it. She was treating the current wounded as Peter wrote the letter and then sat in the corner to play her lyre.
Your Majesty, with respect, it has been years since you have used your sword, but Mirabelle hasn't put hers down. Perhaps she should be the one to battle Miraz? Asked Mariano.
The only problem with that is that I am the princess, not a queen, and Peter is the High King. The challenge from him bears more weight. Also, he's male, and Miraz would laugh at a challenge coming from a woman more than he would laugh at a challenge from Caspian, said Mirabelle.
Even a fool could see her as a powerful opponent,
said Mirabelle, but looks do not appear on paper. My place is at my brother's side, not in his place, said Mirabelle. Mirabelle appeared to be sucking a lemon as she thought about something, but then shook her head and brushed it aside. She would never agree to that idea, even if it meant peace.
Oh, great lady of hope and flame, you appear disgusted at a particular thought. What is on your mind? Asked Truffle Hunter.
I had a ludicrous thought, but do not let my musings bother you, as I would never let this idea of mine come to pass. Everyone here is more sensible than storybook royalty, said Mirabelle. Peter then called Mirabelle over.
Sister, you have clearly not forgotten the language we once used in these matters. Care to proofread to ensure I have not forgotten anything? Asked Peter.
Mirabelle looked over the letter. It had been years since she saw her full title, or even used it herself. Princess Mirabelle the Caring of Narnia, the Lady of Beruna, Heart of Cair Paravel, Bard of the Most Noble Order of the Lion. Mariano was looking at it over her shoulder and gave a low whistle at the length of the titles.
Now we must send 2 others with Mirabelle and Edmund. I think the giant ought to be one of them, said Peter. He is not very clever, Your Majesty, asked Peter. That may be, but a giant is a very intimidating sight, if he can keep quiet. But who to send with him?
The centaurs have stood at our side since the days of the Battle of Beruna. The White Witch will rule again before I refuse a centaur at my side, said Mirabelle.
Glenstorm is the best choice, Your Highness, said Truffle Hunter.
The centaur in question bowed to Mirabelle, who smiled. Your ancestors were some of my dearest friends. They would be proud to see you continue the long allegiance of your people and ours, said Mirabelle.
Truer words have never been spoken, little sister. I remember your beloved fencing and archery teachers were centaur maidens. It makes perfect sense that you would trust the blades of their descendants to be with you,
said Peter. Not just my combat tutors were centaurs. My most trusted handmaidens and personal guards were as well. And as a child, their children were my best friends, said Mirabelle. Glenstorm stood tall with pride at the praise of his people from the princess. As Mirabelle walked, she took in the sight of the enemy camp, and she made sure not to show her displeasure at the looks the soldiers and lords were giving her. The Telmarine lords were talking amongst themselves.
I don't know which of them is more dangerous, but that woman does not look like someone you would want as your enemy, said Lord Glozell. Aye, she is a queenlier being than Her Majesty Queen Prisma. She looks as though she walks among fire, said Lord Sosopian. Your Majesty, it is best we refuse the challenge. There are few of the old tales, if I believe any. But this Mirabelle is very obviously a dangerous creature, perhaps even more so than this King Edmund. Her legend has her driving away armies without drawing a blade. Then there was this morning, with the woman that blazed on the hill, and the air was filled with the most terrifying music. Old wives' tales the others may be, but this Mirabelle is clearly not a myth, said Glozell. That only made Miraz more furious. He nearly tripped over himself on his way to voice his acceptance to Edmund and Mirabelle. But as he walked back to his tent, there was an unaccustomed sinking feeling in his gut. That was no ordinary woman sitting there, and his gut was telling him that he was lucky to be facing the so-called High King rather than this woman. She practically radiated the magic of the wives' tales.
His every instinct as a warrior was telling him that this woman demanded to be treated as a dangerous figure.
Mira, I need you on top of the howl tomorrow, playing your lyre. I will need all the courage it can give me, said Peter.
Of course, said Mirabel. Peter pulled her into a tight hug. He'd never tell Susan or Lucy, but Mirabel was his favourite sister. Mariano was worried. He had trained and trained being in the guard, but had never used his training for anything since Encanto was always at peace. And if things went sideways, tomorrow he'd have to kill or be killed. Peter, if things go wrong tomorrow, my place will be at your side, with my sword in my hand, not watching like battles in years past, said Mirabel.
Are you sure, Mira?
Asked Peter. I'm mentally an adult woman, Peter, not a child like I was at Baruna. I've killed with my bow in battles past. It's time my sword gets the same opportunity, said Mirabel.
Mira, I have never taken my sword up against anyone in a real fight,
said Mariano. Neither had Peter or Edmund in the Battle of Baruna, and you actually have had training unlike they did during that battle. I've sparred with you. I know your skills. You'll do fine, said Mirabel.
And what happens if I die?
Asked Mariano. You go back to Encanto, as though nothing had happened, said Mirabel.
How can you be so sure?
Asked Mariano. Oh, to hell with it, she thought. Then she kissed him. As he stood there in shock, catcalls and hoots from the army around them, which were quickly silenced by a glare from her, she said, I just know. Have faith. Mirabel then walked off into a deeper part of the howl to go and play her lyre.
What just happened? Asked Peter. I'd like to know that myself,
muttered Mariano.
I'll go talk to her,
said Peter.
Hey, what was that all about?
Peter asked, putting his arm around his little sister. I don't know. Damn it, I've been in love with him for a while, but my age, both mentally and physically, are both creepily different from his. If we go back to Encanto, I don't want him labelled as a perv for dating a 15-year-old, but I can't help but feel like a cougar because being emotionally 30 and he's 22. Then there's my cousin Dolores, who is almost the same age as him and has been madly in love with him for years and years, but he's never noticed her, and my uncle made a damn prophecy about how the man of her dreams would be just out of reach betrothed to another. My life with the Madrigals is so damn complicated, and I don't want one of the few allies I have among them to hate me because I'm in love with the man she loves. I had to carefully coach Antonio not to call him Papa. People would talk if that happened, vented Mirabel.
I can tell there is something else too, said Peter.
I don't know if I even want to go back to Encanto. After all is done, if by the grace of Aslan I do get to stay, I don't want him to go back heartbroken, said Mirabel. Peter saw the unshed tears in her eyes.
Mira, you've spent your whole life, both as a princess and as a madrigal.
I haven't been a madrigal since my ceremony. I'm a Pevensey. I've been a Pevensey for 25 years, interjected Mirabel. Peter pulled her into a hug.
Regardless, you've spent nearly all of your life thinking about your kingdom and everyone else, putting their needs before your own. When do you get to be happy? Asked Peter.
She looked up at him.
My duty as the High King is first to my family, then my kingdom, then to myself. You are part of my family, Mirabel, and it breaks my heart to see you hurting yourself like this, not allowing yourself to be happy because of the perceived needs of others. Because if you are unhappy, Mira, that means I have failed in my first duty, said Peter.
Mirabel then let the tears fall, sobbing into the arms of her older brother.
There are two things you want, little sister. You will need to choose what you want more,
said Peter softly. If I do choose to be with Mariano, you won't threaten him too much, will you? Asked Amira with a small grin.
Only slightly more than the man who tries to date Susan or Lucy,
said Peter. Mirabel giggled.
Kissed by the princess. I'd give my sword arm for a kiss on the cheek from her. Way to go,
said one of the dwarves, smacking Mariana on the back.
You are one lucky fellow. The only man in history to have ever claimed the honour of being kissed by Hope herself, said one of the centaurs. Thanks, I guess, said Mariana.
All right, quit the chatter. I need to get an idea of what you can all do in a battle, because these motherless sons of bitches may not keep their word, and we will need to be prepared for the worst possible scenario, said Mirabel, coming back into the room. There was an audible gulp in the room. Those who lost more than 2 minutes against me will be on the front line. Now, line up, said Mirabel. No one was surprised when Reepicheep was the first in line. She looked at him before laughing. So, Reepicheep, of no offence to you or your people, but this challenge is for less accomplished soldiers than you or your people. You wield your sword as though born with it. The same can be said of the centaurs among our ranks. You all do your ancestors proud, said Mirabel. Reepicheep bowed and led the mouse army off to the side to watch, followed by the centaurs. Now then, who's first? Said Mirabel. One of the bears stepped forward. They bowed to each other before Mirabel drew her blade. The fight lasted 30 seconds, with Mirabel winning an easy victory. Peter went off to stand next to Edmund to watch.
Sometimes our little sister scares me, Ed. Crying in my arms one moment, increasing the odds in our favour the next. Our Mirabel sure is something, said Peter. Why was she crying? Asked Edmund. Stressed out, feeling conflicted about a lot of things. Battle of head and heart, said Peter. And you played the big brother role. Figures. You always were her favourite sibling, said Edmund. Don't tell Sue or Lucy, but Mira is my favourite sister, said Peter. I'll keep quiet, for your sake, laughed Edmund. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Now I want to say something. I don't actually ship Mirabel with Mariana, I just don't. But I can see why those emotions would come up in this situation that they're in, despite how ludicrously specific it is. And also I love her interactions with Peter, and her lovely compliment towards Reepicheep. Fun fact, I don't know if I've said this in a previous video, but Reepicheep and his people are actually very special, and they have a link to the first book centuries before any of this happened. Reepicheep and his people are descended from the mice that chewed away the ropes that bound Aslan when he sacrificed himself on the stone table to the White Witch. Because they did that for Aslan, unbinding his dead body, in order to help the girls get him free, they were granted the ability to speak and the sentience that many of the creatures in Narnia have. I love that they were granted that because they helped him. That's an amazing piece of lore. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-bino pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care, okay? Bye!